the beginning of the Civil War, slaves in the South were being abused by their farmers just the same as before the war, and the lives of slaves in the North went on more or less unaffected by the events of the war. The only difference between the two periods was the growing hatred between the Union and the Confederacy over the events of the war.
What is this? Why are you slacking off, you idiot? Now don't think that there's some war coming so you can get away with this. You slaves will always be slaves, the basic mud-sill class of our economy. And it's my duty to civilize y'all to become better people. And the Constitution gives me rights that you are my property. So don't be thinking that just because some Northerners are coming, that's going to change anything. Those insolent fools trying to free our slaves. If this goes on, those Negro lovers might even use you in the army.
I could run away. I could actually be free this time. I could free my brothers and sisters.
What did you just say, boy?
Nothing. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, master. Please, I just wanted to be free. I can't believe those Northerners are filling my slaves. A whole load of rubbish.
What are those dumb Southerners are talking about me? Well, anyways, those fools have no idea what they're talking about. Even some Northerners think that slavery should be allowed, but not spread. I mean, that's completely insane. Some of our best workers are freed black men. I mean, speak of the devil himself. It's Mr. Frederick Douglass.
Don't even get me started on that one. The existence of slavery in this country brands your republicanism as a sham, your humanity as a base pretense, destroys your moral power abroad, corrupts your politicians at home, endangers your union, and fetters your progress. It is the enemy of your improvement, yet you cling to it. Also, I think we need to allow freed blacks in the war. I mean, a lot of my close friends actually really want to be a part of the war.
I completely agree. If you're gonna buy a slave, you need to know how to maximize whip speed to inflict the most damage. You need to start by hitting the slave in a way that follows the sign function so that you give the slave some time to heal before the next hit in shot bursts. Then, to maximize strength, you need to calculate the velocity of the whip and use a barbed wire whip to hit at a 42-degree angle. You know what? Let me just show you. No, come on! Come on!
I'm coming.
Move! Get out the way! Get out the way!
God, I'm so fat. Oh. Hey, so I'm a slave, and I came from the South, and I want to join the war because I ran away.
I think we can make that happen. You're just contraband of the war.
And I heard the South are gonna attack your supply line.
I'll inform my seniors about that. Thank you.
Information like this eventually increased in number and traveled in long strands. According to the CIA, this is a key factor in the Union information lines.
More slaves went to the Union forces to be liberated. The question of what to do with these slaves became more and more pressing. Lincoln wanted to abolish slavery, but he also wanted to keep the Union together. And the decision he made at this point was key to achieving both of those things.
Lincoln, slaves are basically just contraband of the war, which means we can do whatever we want with them. Why can't we just use them in our army?
We cannot risk the border states from seceding. If they do, we might lose the war to the Confederacy.
Okay, whatever you say, Lincoln, but if you go ahead and make this decision and don't allow freed slaves in the army, then you won't have the support of Northern Democrats or the Republicans.
Okay, fine. We'll just disguise it as a military necessity so that the border states don't feel as if their way of life is being threatened. We'll compensate the slave owners, and we'll notify the border states beforehand so that they have time to prepare.
All persons held as slaves within any states or designated part of the state, the people whereof shall be in rebellion against the United States, shall be then, thenceforward, and forever free.
My God, that was amazing, Lincoln. Thank the Lord of Jesus Christ, I'm finally free.
What? Lincoln can't just walk in here like a Negro and just say, these Negroes are free. They're my property.
These filthy Southerners. I swear,
You're a filthy Negro. Get down on your feet. Bow to me. Why do I always get slapped?
It took a long time for blacks to finally have equal rights to whites through the 14th Amendment. However, before then, they were able to ban indentured servitude and slavery through the 13th Amendment in 1865, only because of the efforts of African Americans in the Civil War. Freed slaves were allowed in the war, the whole outlook of the war changed. According to History.net, around 10% of the Civil War army was comprised of very hardworking, freed slaves, and the slaves reignited the war effort, playing a key role in the victory of the Union.
Oh my God, thank Lincoln. Now I can finally fight the war. I'm a soldier. I'm gonna free my blacks brothers and blacks sisters, and I'm gonna work hard and train hard. Even though those dumb Southerners think I should stay a slave, I'm not afraid if they enslave me or capture me. Man, I love Lincoln. He's letting me help my nation.
We will win the war, and I will be a part of it.
Black volunteers like this came into the war, and in May 1863, the government established the Bureau of Colored Troops to manage their increasing numbers. Unfortunately, because of prejudice against them, they were not used as extensively as they could have been, and did not receive the same pay as whites until a congressional act in 1864. The hard-working African Americans that participated in the war through black regiments. The first of ever were implemented in the Civil War during the battle at Port Hudson. These men, enlisted by General Nathaniel Banks, attacked Port Hudson because it was an important stronghold for the Confederate Army, because it had access to the Mississippi River. The battle amounted to a back and forth between the opposing forces, ending with the Confederates surrendering because of a loss at the Battle of Vicksburg. In this battle, the Black Regiment, the Louisiana Native Guards, had to attack across Telegraph Road all the way down to the port.
I'm so glad that we finally get to fight in a war! But aren't you scared? We don't even know how to fight! It doesn't matter, we're fighting for a good cause! I don't want to die! What do you mean you don't want to die? Don't you want to stop the Confederacy from spreading? No! I'm not ready to die, I'm 12! You're gonna die either way! No, I don't want to die! You know why? You know why you're gonna die? Why? Because if you defect, we'll shoot and kill you. If you get captured by the Confederate soldiers, they'll enslave and kill you. And you don't know how to fight, so you're probably gonna get shot. No! Wait. Go!
One of the most famous instances of African American bravery was the 54th of Massachusetts, led by General Nathaniel Banks. And they fought at the Battle of Fort Wagner, and they lost nearly 40% of their troops.
Whoa. You're William Harvey Carney, right?
Yeah, I am. And you are?
I'm your biggest fan. I'm Rob.
Carney, who are they?
They're the Confederates. Watch out. They're pretty good.
Who are the Confederates?
They're our enemy.
Hey, Carney,
What do you think you're doing, soldier? Bro, why are you, what?
there's a big fat guy in a suicide mission.
Soldier.
Get him!
Soldier. Don't die. Soldier. No, doctor. We need your help right now, doctor, come on. Martin Delany, a black man committed to abolition, entered the Civil War with a background as a physician's assistant.
I'm coming. Dude. Come on, put the gun away. Oh, God. You got a huge one. Do you have any final words? You might die right now.
Tell my family I love them. They're the greatest thing I've ever had in my life. I just wish I could spend more time with them, and I wish they could have seen the free world, and I'll miss them. I'll tell them.
What are you talking about? You don't have a family.
Oh, you're right. Oh, another one. Tell Mr. Rasm to give me an A.
Oh, will do, Sergeant. Will do.
Martin Delany and William Harvey were both recognized after the war, with Harvey and 15 other blacks receiving the Medal of Valor, and Martin Delany went on to be promoted to a major in the war. However, along with being soldiers, blacks also served as carpenters, cooks, guards, scouts, and more, with women serving as spies and scouts, the most famous of which is Harriet Tubman.
Dude, those filthy Negroes, I hate them, dude. Why are they allowed to walk freely on these streets, dude? Like, actually, they should be sanctioned a separate area. They're better off slaves. They're better off as slaves instead. Bro, dude, those
Whoa. You can't say those words here, okay? This is a PG production. And I mean, those African Americans did so much for us. Without them, we wouldn't even have won the Civil War. That's why we moved past the days of slavery.
Those filthy Negroes, you think they did anything for us? They're black.
Yeah, they actually did help us. When the Emancipation Proclamation Act was passed in 1863 by President Lincoln, many black regiments, such as the 54th Massachusetts Regiment, began to pop up. These regiments fought in major battles such as Fort Wagner and Port Hudson, with General Nathaniel Banks, a commander of the 1st Black Regiment, praising them on their valor and character. Also, we began to use freed slaves as spies to gain valuable information. General Robert E. Lee, commander of the Confederate Army of Northern Virginia, was aware of this value of African Americans for the Union, and in May 1863, he said, "The chief source of information to the enemy is through our Negroes." By using African Americans in the Army, we were able to win the war and prevent the root cause of the war, which was slavery. By eradicating slavery, it set us up for the Civil Rights Movement in 1950s to gain equal rights for blacks.
Dude, I still hate blacks. Dude, I don't care about that. Dude, you're not my friend anymore. Just go away.